everyone, and welcome to the latest installment of MSP Business School. I'm Brian Doyle, and with me today, as always, or at least most of the time, I've got Tim and Rob. Rob, how are you guys today?
Hey, nice little dig there, Brian, at the
Yeah,
start of the new year, man.
yeah. It's
But
good to
You're
it's good
supposed to
to
be
see you this time.
positive.
It's
You,
good
Turn
you
to
over a
may
see
new
you
not
this
have
time.
seen
leaf.
my face in the
Yeah.
last episode, but I was here, man. The perfect attendance, still not scarred. But anyway,
Teacher's pet.
I've always been the teacher's pet. Come on. But with that being said, anything new going on with you guys before we kick things off today?
It's kicking the year off, man. It's been a busy start to the year. It's been good.
Yeah,
How about for
nothing
you?
new on this side of the house.
Beautiful. I'll put out the shameless plug. Tim and Rob have been working diligently on sales maturity.
All
If you haven't learned about
right, we're
that,
going
you
there.
should
All right, we're going there.
you should go
All
check
right.
that out. But as I always say every week, nobody's here to listen to us. They're here for our guests. And today we have a familiar one. Some of you may have recognized him as he came onto the camera. He's been with us on the show before, and certainly many of you have met him out at places in the past. And I want to welcome to the show today, Chris Johnson from over at CompTIA. How are you doing today, Chris?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me on the show. I always look forward to listening to when you guys post and I go, oh, I gotta listen to that. I gotta listen to that.
Well,
Thank you.
I've had the beauty of getting on Chris's show. For those of you that have never checked out his podcast, MSP 1337, if you're in cybersecurity, it's a must listen, man. It's good stuff,
right.
and it'll really help you as you build out your practice. But Chris, I think you're here today. I'd love to kick off where you share with people a little bit about your background, just for those
Sure.
that haven't, met you in person or via our podcast in the past. That'd be great. But I think you've got some new initiatives over at CompTIA you want to share with us today, and we're excited to hear about that. So start us out. Tell us a little bit about your backstory, Chris.
So my backstory in the world of IT, I think like many of those listening you fell into it. You liked something in the IT space. Maybe you built a computer as a kid. I was something along those lines of I didn't like working at U-Haul anymore. So I had a lot of dirty jobs early on in my career, but I had the opportunity during the .com era to kind of get my teeth cut on volunteering for a school district at the time, and I just kind of fell in love with that whole IT as a whole and in the K-12 space. And so over the span of the last 20 years, that evolved into really caring more about the cybersecurity side of it than the IT. I could still occasionally turn a screwdriver, but those that know me well say, please, dear Lord, don't give Chris a screwdriver, because whatever you give Chris, he's going to call it a screwdriver. So I had the opportunity, as Brian, you alluded to a little bit, to take a kind of a big career change for me. I spent the last 4 years in the sort of the CISO tech director space for a school district. So it didn't really change the nonprofit world, but switched over to CompTIA with a unique opportunity to head up the cybersecurity compliance programs under the cybersecurity team of membership at CompTIA. And of course, anybody listening is probably, if they know about CompTIA, they either know one of two things. They know about certs, which I'd be real shocker if someone doesn't know that, A+ Network Plus comes from CompTIA. They do a pretty good job of broadcasting that on everything. But then on the membership side is where people either know a little bit, maybe they've gone to a ChannelCon event or consumed some of the member-led initiatives to get white papers or other content in people's hands, but they really don't know what it means to be engaged with CompTIA. And kind of to what you said, Brian, like, where do you get involved with things like committees and other areas of CompTIA that are really about, I like to say it's all about giving back, but let's be honest, if there's not anything in it for me, the probability of staying engaged with it for very long isn't very high. This isn't like, how do I give back to my community and help plant trees? And every time I drive down, I can see the goodwill that happened from what I did, which kind of leads right into where I get to be engaged at CompTIA, which is the cybersecurity compliance programs. And for those of you that don't know, in December, we announced the new CompTIA Cybersecurity Trustmark. And some will recognize the name Trustmark from CompTIA because starting all the way back in 2008, CompTIA launched a Trustmark initiative for solution providers to help them establish their chops in the cybersecurity space, to be able to prove in an unregulated industry that, hey, I take cybersecurity seriously. I personally was able to get involved as a volunteer back in 2013, and that was right after the omnibus rule. So in 2014, it relaunched with some changes to help kind of recognize some of the stuff that had come out through high trust on the omnibus rule, or not the omnibus rule. And so it kind of ebbed and flowed, and you had about, I'm going to say 75 to 100 MSPs that were seriously engaged and found real value in it and leveraged it with their clients and won deals because they had it. But by and large, it just wasn't heavy enough, especially in lieu of what we're seeing come out with the new requirements coming from the insurance carriers. I forget who the carrier was that just recently the CEO said, solution providers and businesses in general need to get comfortable with the idea that they will not get cybersecurity insurance. So that's not to say, hey, doom and gloom. And that's really where we come in at this hour, is to say, hey, the new Trustmark is largely tied to how do we help all but guarantee that you can get cybersecurity insurance? How do we put you in a position that when you are working with a client, it's not a, oh, well, we only work with businesses that are CMMC, whatever, or we need you to be, can you prove do you have your SOC 2 type 2? And I'm not for 1 second dismissing that those aren't extremely valuable and important frameworks to satisfy. But we also know that solution providers have to start somewhere. And starting with, say NIST 800-53 and trying to satisfy, roughly 800 plus controls is not going to happen in a reasonable amount of time. And one of the things kind of the with regards to the Trustmark is this is not something that you're going to get done in 30 days. It just isn't. So hopefully I just eliminated some people going, hey, can I get this done in January? Well, it's the 11th. Probably not.
As we record it, probably the 25th as I see it.
Yeah. So like, when this goes live, I'm telling you, you can do this. You will have roughly 72 hours to get it done.
Go.
What could go wrong?
Go.
Well, I think you're hitting on a couple of things that I find very interesting, Chris. Like, one of the biggest challenges out there in this industry has recognized is anybody can be an MSP tomorrow. Whereas if I was going to go cut hair, I got to get a license. If I was going to do other things, I got to want to fish, I got to get a license. This is, an area where people are touching very sensitive information without any guidelines. And I think those that are pursuing some level of compliance expertise are at least showing that they're committed to the greater good, right? And that they're working there. So concepts like, the traditional compliance frameworks or the Trustmark is something that I think is critical to our industry as a whole, to let people feel comfortable with the people working on the other side, that they actually know how to run an operation, right? If you can't run your own operation, how are you going to run mine? And those are some critical needs. The other part about the insurance, that's an interesting quote that you brought up, that people need to get comfortable without getting insurance, because there's a lot of challenges in this cyber insurance competency. One, on the insurer side, and I never like to stick up for the insurers, but the reality is they don't know where the fence is going to be when an outbreak happens, right? Or an event happens. So they got to get some control around it. And, that might not be something Trustmark can solve for 100%, but it can certainly help guide teams to being able to demonstrate the controls that they need to have for themselves and implement within their customers. So we're reducing the risk, and the cyber liability insurers might see some relief with less claims.
Yeah, I think that, one of the things that we hope to do, so we have the Trustmark has three sort of paths. One is like, I don't know if I could successfully complete this idea that is the Trustmark, or this thing that is the Trustmark. Like, I need to go down a readiness or like even a pre-readiness path to find out, like, what do I have in place now? What are my gaps? What will I need to do to even be successful doing what is sort of the second path, which is self-attestation with oversight. And then, of course, the ultimate goal is to do the fully audited with oversight from our accreditation board, and you get the magnificent certification that says you are in fact you are an achiever of the Trustmark, right? There's going to be all walks or all different sorts of snowflakes in this, as MSPs are often referred to. You know, we're all unique. Some MSPs may just go, for me, I just want to be able to ensure I can get cybersecurity insurance and sleep at night, and that's where I want to stop. I hope no MSP is thinking that way, but that's a reality. The other one is, I just want to know for myself, is my organization on the right path from a cybersecurity posture and maturity standpoint? Are we going in the right direction? Then of course there's that third one, which is, I'm going to use this to define everything that I do, and it will separate me from everybody else in this industry. And I'm looking forward to marching to the beat of that drum for the opportunities that it brings. And that's where that compliance versus security posture start to sort of sort themselves out, right? If I can prove that my organization has improved on a security posture, awesome, great. Now we can start talking about how does it comply with the control set and be definitive in what we tell our employees and our clients that we're actually doing to be secure.
Okay.
Awesome.
So I've got a question, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit in the beginning, where not everybody's just ready to dive headfirst into all of this. There's so many moving parts. Like if you're a new provider or a new company trying to get into this space, how do they engage with you? Like, what are the first steps they take? What does that look like? How can they achieve some of the things that you just talked about?
Yeah, so if someone's interested because they've heard some of the buzz around the Trustmark, you know, if you're not a CompTIA member, that's always a added plus, especially when it comes to getting audited, because I can tell you that the price differences between getting audited or fully audited as a member will be dramatically different than as a non-member. And of course, there's other benefits for being a member CompTIA anyways. But I will tell you, there's an actual, I think you can just search, you know, CompTIA Cybersecurity Trustmark, and there's a form you can fill out. You can email me. I mean, I've had countless people go, hey, I didn't find the form right away, but I know your email address. Can you please add me to the wait list? But for those that are like, forget the wait list for a minute, just thinking about like, I want to get the Trustmark, but I don't even know where to begin. I would say anybody that has already started down a path of operating with a framework, whether it's CIS or any of them, wow, great. You're already on the right path. If you haven't started on one, my recommendation would be for anybody that hasn't gone this direction is to just pick up CIS version 8. It's a great place to start. I would say 99% of what's in there you need to be doing anyways. And we literally included all of CIS through group 3 is part of the overall Trustmark. So we didn't leave any of the CIS controls out. That's where I would start. And if someone's like, well, is there a platform or a place I could go get like to help walk through it? Yeah, CISsecurity.org. You can register for free for the CSAT Lite. And that'll let someone go through and like at the very least start answering where am I at with these 153 controls that are in there. And again, I'm not saying that to say, hey, you satisfy all of this, you're definitely qualified to go and audit for the Trustmark. But knowing that all of those controls are in there, don't wait until we open this up to general public to start working on, okay, now I'm ready. When this goes live, I have the 72 hours to get it done. I'll start then, right? And I think just kind of in general of like any organization that does a sort of look in the mirror, what are we doing today that helps us show our cybersecurity maturity, our cybersecurity posture, and where are my gaps? I mean, what MSP doesn't have asset inventory that they are managing and tracking? It's Control 1. Right. Yep. So of CIS. So and it's ironic and unfortunate. So many solution providers will go, yeah, that's the easy part. It's like, okay, well, how many assets do you have? Well, I don't know. Well, you just told me it was the easy part. So then you tell me you don't know what it is. So is it easy? I don't think it's easy. I mean, I've talked to organizations where they spend the new guy coming in trying to gauge where they're at, spends 4 to 6 months establishing asset inventory, and he hasn't even touched a computer yet. So, we're quick to jump down this path of like, and we're going to see this, of course, is I want to check the boxes, right? Like, I want to get the Trustmark. I want to check that off the list. Well, then this is probably going to be a difficult path for you. But if you're really looking to improve your organization's cybersecurity culture first mindset, oh, this is going to be great for you, and you will go at the pace that your business can tolerate. And as we continue to check in with that solution provider, we will be able to successfully see alongside them that they are in fact maturing. And I don't know if that truly answered your question, but like,
No, it
that's
did.
where I would
It
start.
did. No, there were.
It answers a lot, because I like the part that you talked about there. You start today jumping into CIS. We're big fans of CIS because it does give you a nice way to even step into that process, right? With the 3 different implementation groups. But most insurers, the questions that I've been seeing on those insurance policy reviews, those questions have really been coming from a lot of what's being asked in CIS as well. So if we look at CIS as kind of a stepping point to getting into Trustmark, it's a great place that people can get started today. That's fantastic, because I think I've always thought of CIS as very common sense controls for almost every business.
When I first saw it, I thought they actually wrote it to MSPs. Like I literally, like, I was reading the first control and I'm like, asset inventory. In my head, I'm going RMM tool. And I continue to walk through it. And I'm like, and then you have conversations with others and they're like, oh yeah, but we only do the first 2 subcontrols. And then it was like, it registered with me. And it's like, despite the fact that these seem very common sense, there's a lot of complexities to it when you go past that group 1.
I think CIS has done the best job of defining what those groups really mean and how to practically apply them out in the marketplace. Starting with group 1 being the under 250 non-targeted, right? It really, and then moving to the other 2 groups, which really start getting into more focused targeted attacks with security personnel, to having full-blown security teams and expectation of trying to be attacked, right? Those are things that really help you level set and go, where do I really fit in this spectrum? Right. And, do I want to achieve one spectrum higher or, 1 level higher than us? So I love, I'm a big fan of the CIS.
Well, and it's really funny because group 1, I think, is like 56, somewhere in the 50s range.
Yeah, 56, you're spot on.
And then there's another, 60 or 70 controls for group 2. But then group 3, what is it, like 12?
Yeah, it's not a heavy lift to group 3.
Yeah, but you would not believe the number of solution providers are like, I'm just doing groups 1 and 2.
Yeah.
It's like the tortoise and the hare, right? Like, well, I'm gonna sit here and wait right by the finish line because I've got all the time in the world. And then when he closes his eyes, the turtle just walks across the finish line. We're the turtle, man. Like, you don't have to, like, you should, there's no reason not to go all the way through to the finish line.
Chris, I got kind of a question you may have hit upon indirectly, but I'm just a little confused on it here. When we talk about SecureMark, you've really talked about it as it relates to the MSP community, but knowing CompTIA also services enterprise as well. Do enterprises have interest in security Trustmark, or is that really regulated to the service provider industry?
No, so when I was brought into my new role with the title of, compliance programs with an S, not program, which would have been like, to me, like the Trustmark's one thing. So in my head, I'm going, why does it have an S? What is programs actually mean? And so we're kind of doing this in a walk as fast as we can, but as slow as we need to, or run as fast as we can, as slow as we need to. We get one shot at this, right? So in our industry, not regulated, lots of buzz, both in the US with things that haven't materialized as far as being regulated versus, Canada and UK that all have, whether it's cybersecurity essentials or something along those lines. These are government mandated requirements for our industry. And in the US, we currently have a big whopping 0, right? So everybody's kind of looking at us going, what are they going to do? How many teeth are in this thing that would really make us feel confident, like, hey, it's audited and there's an accreditation board, and this isn't just something that you just say, oh, yep, I did it. Part 2, part 3, and continue down the path, because I kid you not, even with those that are in our pilot, first thing out of their mouth is, I can already see how this will be something that my clients want to adopt. We're like, slow down. You get the Trustmark, then let's talk about your clients. And largely it's tied to, it's not going to be exactly the same. Is the 153 controls that make up CIS that are in the Trustmark going to be all included for, say the enterprise or the client? Not necessarily. It could be like one of the controls is all about software development. I don't think most MSPs are truly doing software development, but we kept it in there because there's also the group that is. So leaving it out puts us in a bad spot for those that are actually doing it. So I think on the enterprise front, it's going to be maybe, and maybe when we say enterprise, like what size organization would this make sense for? As a starting point, if they haven't done anything, sure, I could see this being hugely valuable. But we already have in sort of the enterprise space with like ISO 27001 and some of the other NYDFS, which even has all the way down to small business. I think you're going to see that they're already either regulated and having to go down a path with an existing framework, or they have not really approached it and are considering a framework where we might come into play and be a good fit. But that's kind of where we're at today, is a little bit like cart before the horse. We want to satisfy the Trustmark delivery to this industry, and then allow that feedback to go, how do we take this to, say, an MSP's client base who are like, hey, we want to satisfy, implementation group 1 across all controls for, any of our clients that are less than 25 employees or have less than 4 million in revenue or something along those lines.
Awesome. So, so I think we've now got a good understanding of where the Trustmark fits. I think we've got a good understanding of what steps an MSP can do to, to get put together. Maybe we can close the conversation today and talk a little bit about what audit expectations would be for the end user. And I'm not necessarily talking dollars and cents, but really,
Sure.
What does that audit process feel like? Because for a lot of MSPs, they've never been part of an audit, both for their customers or directly, and it can be a little frightening entering into it.
Yeah. So I have been involved in, say, assessments, more client facing, a lot of those. And I've never had one that everybody felt warm and fuzzy when I showed up to give them the results, right? The same is true, obviously, when you are going through the audit yourself. Someone else is going to, look behind the curtain. Prying eyes are going to want to know, like, hey, why is the server in the janitor's closet? It seems like a really bad place to put a server. The idea here is that on the readiness program side, which is really not audited, it's more of like getting feedback and asking questions of like, have I got enough going for me today to go down the path of either self-attestation or fully audited. So self-attestation is essentially me going through a platform that has all of my control questions in it that I answer and put the evidence and all the stuff that goes with it. And then with the audit side of that, an auditor is going to look at some of the sort of limited scope here, right? So the auditor is going to say, hey, nice job on that policy for asset inventory. It's looking really good on how you're approaching vulnerability and pen testing, those types of things. I think you're ready to move on and go after the fully audited. So we anticipate that self-attestation, especially for MSPs that are early on in this and they haven't done anything else, it's realistic to think that they may take anywhere from 90 days all the way up to 12 months, just depending on the pace that they can take on, right? Do you have somebody that's assigned to this and they can put more than 5 hours a month to this, maybe putting 5 hours a week to this? Yeah, realistically, you could get it done. Or maybe you're using a platform that's allowed you to collect a lot of evidence that's mapping to controls of a framework already. That would help someone maybe accelerate that. Then the fully audited is the auditor is looking at every single control answer and the evidence that has been supplied and probably asking additional questions about how those answers were delivered. Once that auditor is done, that gets passed on to the accreditation board, and the accreditation board, I don't have all the details in front of me, but like one of the thoughts that you would think about would be like, is the MSP being presented to this accreditation board by the auditor, did it get the same objective look that the other MSP who only had 5 employees versus 50 employees to go and get the certification? And that's not to say like one doesn't have to do as much as the other, just that their environments are going to be different. We don't want to take points away because something doesn't apply to that organization. So that's kind of how it would be. And that would be like a year 2 kind of thing. And quite honestly, the sooner you get that first step done, the faster you can move into that second one. But again, this is about your maturity as an organization, not so much about the checkbox and the certification. And note that I keep saying the word certification or certificate. We've stopped using the term badge. Like it's not a trophy, right? Like this is part of your journey. Like this is more like it's the annual renewal for your car insurance, and you got a $50 gift card, because you had a good driving record or your rates didn't go up through the roof. That's really the mentality we want solution providers to adopt. Is this is about proving your security posture, not about like, I got it. Got
Let's put it up on the website and let everybody know,
Right.
and let's
That's
press
right.
release
Yeah.
it and all the
Yep.
other good things, right?
And
Making the
that's
marketing
important.
open.
Yeah, I don't want to dismiss that. I think those things are important too, but we want to make sure that people understand that the intent behind the Trustmark is for them to prove their maturity, not whether or not they, passed a test, because someone helped them through it, and now they can put the sticker on their website.
Well, I think if you want this to have teeth long term for you in the program, it's got to have that true mindset of we're going in to make our business better. We're going in to make our service delivery stronger and more secure. And if I'm going to it from that reason, the benefit that's really going to put more cachet to those press releases about doing it, rather than it just being a, hey, we got this too. And it's no different than when one of your engineers gets a certification, not to diminish that either, but
Sure.
it's just one of those things that you do. So kudos to you guys for kind of getting that mind shifts changing too, because I think a lot of us were initially under the impression, okay, so this is something that'll just become kind of the seal of approval for the MSP sector,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be a heavy lift to get it done. It's not going to, I'm listening, and it's a little bit heavier lift than doing your CIS controls, because it sounds like you've got additional ones layered on top. Where it might be a little bit easier is your accreditation board might, and I don't know how they operate, but they might help an MSP guide to success, meaning help them understand where their deficiencies are and give them that chance to correct it. Whereas, a traditional auditor will just shut you down, make their notation, and good luck next year.
Yeah, I can tell you for those listening, just to give you an idea of how many controls. So there's 153 of CIS. So add that to what we pulled from other frameworks. And I probably won't get them all, but NYDFS, PCI, HIPAA, there's a few more. But the overall, just to give you the sort of the exact count, is there are 248, give or take 1 or 2. And we included controls where it's literally just asking for a policy. From where we sit, for the way we're doing this, that's a control or a requirement to complete the overall Trustmark. So there you have it.
All right.
Jeez, it's
That's
a lot.
And that's probably a good place for us to end for today too. I think we're nearing that time.
Sure.
Chris, anything else you want to share before we close? When's the next CompTIA event that everybody should be aware of?
Next CompTIA event that is CompTIA hosted event would be the Communities and Councils Forums in March, which I believe starts I'm going to say this wrong. I think it starts on March 11. It's that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's right around the corner. And the last thing I would say is, if you are even remotely considering addressing cybersecurity in your organization, CIS is an amazing place to start, especially with group 1 being somewhat, I don't want to say simple, but it's kind of, it's linear, right? Control 1, step 1, control 2, right? So start there, get something going, and of course, get involved with CompTIA, get involved with the membership is a good place to find resources that can help you navigate this journey. You don't have to do this by yourself.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Well, fellas, we're coming up to that time. Chris, I really appreciate you joining us today. For anybody that is looking to get a hold of Chris, we will be including his LinkedIn profile with the podcast and any appropriate links as needed. Also, this episode will be up on mspbusinessschool.com and anywhere that you get your podcast, to include YouTube. So please
Smash
like and
the bell.
subscribe.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
good
Always
Really
a pleasure,
appreciate you
Chris.
coming on again.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care, everybody.